Well, with me now in the studio is the BBC World Service Africa editor Mary Harper, who interviewed the conference's other host, the Somali president, today. Mary's also recently written a book about Somalia. Why are countries like Britain interested in getting Somalia properly back on its feet?
They're interested primarily because Somalia is not only a threat to itself and to the wider region in the part of Africa where it's placed, but also it's a threat globally. There are Somalis living in places like the UK, in the United States and elsewhere, many of whom have become radicalized. Some have gone back to Somalia to join this Islamist Al-Qaeda-linked militia called Al-Shabaab. And there is a fear on the part of the British authorities and others that they might not only conduct terror activities in Somalia, but maybe come back to places like London and do something here. And then there's also the problem of piracy, which has reduced. But it was a huge embarrassment to the world that a few hundred Somalis in little boats could basically disrupt one of the world's most busy shipping lanes.
Well, so that explains why Britain and other Western powers are interested. What about Turkey? Because there's been lots of interesting detail about the influence of Turkey and the extent of Turkish interest in Somalia today. Why?
Yes, it is extraordinary. For 20 years, the world powers tried to sort Somalia out and tried to do something to bring an end to the conflict or to intervene in various humanitarian disasters, to very little effect. A couple of years ago, when there was a famine in Somalia, the Turkish Prime Minister was overwhelmed by grief, and he went there not only with himself and a large delegation of officials, but with members of his family. And he was the first non-African head of state to visit Somalia for more than 20 years. And that caused a sort of outpouring of assistance from the Turkish population. And there's Turkish people driving around on the streets of Mogadishu, building schools, working in hospitals. They have a completely different approach towards the country, and one that has proved highly effective.
How interesting. That's something you don't often hear about on the news. Now, tell me about the security situation, because the government is still not in control of all of Somalia, is it? Al-Shabaab still controls some areas.
They control some areas. There's whole huge parts of the north that are either breakaway, self-declared independent regions or semi-autonomous regions with their own presidents. So the president's sphere of control is very limited. He also depends for foreign African peacekeepers or fighters, really, for his security. And as we saw in Andrew Harding's piece, there are bomb attacks conducted by Al-Shabaab in the capital, Mogadishu, right under the president's nose. And when I spoke to him, he sort of said that the style of attack has changed. It's no longer a city of front lines, but security is definitely a threat.
Today, Shabab is not controlling it. They are coming there as a suicide bombers or roadside bomb. So that indicates the level of security improvement under the control of the Somali government. One more thing is that one has to understand the incidents like what has happened in Mogadishu is something that's common and something that indicates when these groups are, their power, their grip to the society is declining. That's the next stage of the war that they do. But we are very much hopeful and expecting that this will end soon. But particularly this time around where the Somali security forces and Somali security institutions are getting wide support from the international community.
The Somali president speaking to Mary earlier. This is a country you know very well, Mary. Do you feel it has really turned a corner?
It has. In the past year, the situation has changed significantly. Partly it's the mood of the people. It seems that they feel that there's more to gain from peace than war, finally. There's a new president who we just heard from who's very different. He's not associated with violence or corruption of former leaders. But at the same time, it is a very, very fragile kind of situation there. And it could go either way. It could either fall back into a situation of chaos and violence, or with international support, but primarily with Somali initiative, it could probably move forward very, very quickly and become economic power in that part of Africa.
And that would mean everyone would